Welcome back to the Buffalo Bisons Hall of Fame room inside the Swan Street Gate at Coca-Cola Field with the curator of the Hall of Fame room, John Boutet. I'm Pat Malacaro. Well, John, every collector has to start somewhere, and a lot of times it's in our youth that we start to collect a lot of mementos from games we've gone to or cards in the past. So we've got some stuff laid out today. Let's take a walk through. And I know for me personally, growing up, I grew up on the Panini stickers, and you go to the supermarket and buy them, but you collect them a different way as well.
Yeah, when we were kids, you didn't have to buy them. I mean, they would give them away. In different places like Loblaws, which was a supermarket chain here in Buffalo, they had a hockey sticker set that I used to collect that you see right here. And then at Sunoco gas stations, they used to give away stickers as well. So I have an NFL one from Sunoco and then an NHL one from Loblaws. And, you know, that was one of the earliest things that I remember actually, collecting and trying to go out and complete the set, because every collector wants to complete the set. So those are kind of cool. I brought those out to share, and some of your fans in your 50s and 60s might remember those. They're really cool.
And even it wouldn't be just for one specific team. You get to have to collect them all and different players from different teams when you'd get your little packet that day.
Yeah, it was the entire NFL, all the teams you'd have to collect in the little packets. You see the packet I brought out. And I remember going after school. My mom would pick me up from school, and we'd have to stop for gas. And when you filled up with gas, they gave you about 4 or 5 packets of those things, and you'd tear them open and see who you got. And if you were lucky, you got Terry Bradshaw, or you got Bob Greasy, or somebody really good. Or there's guys in there that were just common players that were not popular, but you needed them to complete that set. So they were just as important as one of those all-star players.
And I mentioned collecting Panini stickers in my youth, but also I'm a huge card collector as well, and we're not short on cards here in this display either.
I have tons of cards, and I think just about every collector started with cards, at least most of the ones that I know. As little kids, you'd go running up to 7-Eleven, you'd have your quarter in your hand, you'd have to decide, do I want to do baseball cards today, or hockey cards, or football cards? Well, you got to have all of them. If you're in Buffalo, especially, you got to have all of them. So we go up and buy our packs of cards and rip them open on the street and see who you got. And again, sometimes you'd get really, really good cards. You get Carl Yastrzemski or Johnny Bench or somebody like that. And sometimes you'd get, who knows, some guy that really didn't make it too well. But again, you needed all of them to complete the set. So every one was just as important as the other one.
And bubblegum was in a lot of these packs through my youth. I know that's something, even today, when you see a box of cards from the 80s or 90s, you see if the gum's still in there, and if it's you can't eat it, but if it's still even in its existence.
Now, if you're lucky enough to find old unopened packs and open one of them, the gum just disintegrates as soon as you open it. It was such cheap gum. It only lasted about a minute or two before it lost its flavor. But sometime around the 80s and 90s, they got rid of gum. They felt that kids weren't buying the stuff for gum anymore. It was now about investments and trying to find a great Gretzky card or Bobby Orr card or something really, really cool. So they got rid of the gum. But I love cards. Cards are a lot of fun. And now there's a big company. There's a couple of companies out that actually grade the cards. So now just because you have a Gilbert Perreault rookie card doesn't mean it's worth a lot of money. It's based on condition and how good it is. How nice the condition is, how the color is, how the corners are, how the centering is. It means so much in card collecting.
And one of the things I know growing up right in the 2000s, Flutie Flakes, when Doug Flutie became the quarterback of the Bills, between him and Rob Johnson, Doug Flutie took over the job. We had Flutie Flakes, but you couldn't find them. They weren't on the shelves. If you had them, they were like gold.
I remember when they came out and running out and buying like a whole case of them, because you figured they probably only made so many of these things, and sure enough, they became a really big collector's item. Back in the day, I remember Flutie Flakes were selling for $25, $30 a box. Now you can pick them up if you see them at a card show or something like that. They're only a few dollars a piece, but everybody looks at those Flutie Flakes. I remember those. I remember going and buying those. So, it's a later era collectible, but it really is, it screams Buffalo.
And another thing that screams Buffalo, a little bit before my time, explain to folks that maybe are my age and younger the Whammy Weenie and the significance of it from the Bills days.
Well, the Whammy Weenie was put out by a supermarket here in Buffalo called Bell's, and they were one of the big sponsors of the Buffalo Bills. Well, somebody I don't even know who the guy's name was. I'm sure I could find it. But he came up with an idea of putting a Whammy Weenie out that was going to rival the terrible towel of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they came out with these things, and it was kind of a mystery. Why green hot dogs, and what did it stand for? Well, they took off. I mean, everybody loved coming to the game, and they would say, "Shake your whammy weenie," and it was like, okay. So it was one of those collectibles. It didn't last long. It lasted maybe a year or something like that, and management kind of thought, this is not a great idea. Let's get rid of this thing. So they kind of disappeared. There was a story that went around that the paint was lead-based paint, and they had to recall them all. I seem to question that, but I just think it was just kind of untasteful.
Something that might have been a little bit of a better idea during the Sabres Stanley Cup run of the 1970s. Even today, when the Sabres are in the playoffs, we hear, we want that cup. We're going to get that cup. And I think that's a song that anytime the Sabres are in the playoffs, it always rears its head again.
We're going to win that cup. It was huge in 1975. Donna McDaniel was the girl that sang it. Tommy Calandra was the musician who performed it. And it just took right off. It was actually recorded, sang, and printed right here in Buffalo, New York. And if you can find one of those 45s from that 1975 season, it's a really nice collectible. You'll always find at least one or two on eBay somewhere. They usually sell in the $25, $30 range, but no Saber collection is complete without we're going to win that cup 45.
I never saw this before, but you brought another couple items from the Sabres era as well, and the Saber Jack, something that if you didn't have it, you weren't in the club.
Oh, you had to have a Saber Jack when you were 10 years old. If you didn't have a Saber Jack, you weren't in the club. Every parent had to go out for Christmas and buy their son or their daughter the Saber Jack, and it was very popular back in the mid to late 1970s. It just represented, you were a fan of that team, and it really screamed Buffalo. That the colors were the iconic blue and gold of the Sabres, and everybody had to have a Saber Jack. This one in particular actually belonged to Frank Christie, who was a longtime trainer of the Buffalo Sabres. So lucky to acquire that. But sometimes you'll find Saber Jacks around too on eBay and things like that, or Craigslist has them sometimes. And, you'll probably pay about $75 or $100 for an original Saber Jack. They were produced by Bojack's company here in Buffalo and sold through JCPenney. But they were very popular, and you had to have one in those winter months.
For John Boutet, I'm Pat Malacaro. You can come into the Buffalo Bisons Hall of Fame room and see the Hall of Fame 1 hour before every first pitch here inside of Coca-Cola Field. We'll talk to you next time on Curator's Corner.